Folks, today I want to talk about a very important topic here because I'm seeing a trend, particularly in the Canadian business environment. And this is, there is literally a ton of money being constrained in the economy right now because leaders are pulling back and tightening up their budgets. That's one thing. The other thing is there's a massive investment that's being made in AI, literally hundreds of billions of dollars that are being invested in technology. And I'm all for technology. I support technology 110%. I use AI and I play around with it. I'm always testing out new productivity tools. And so there's a lot of money that's being put into that. But what's happening as a result of that is that there's money and the funds are being drained from retooling, re-educating, reskilling, coaching, training people and human beings. Okay, so companies are spending less now on their people and trying to spend more now on technology. Now, I'm going to warn that this is a very tricky challenge here. Again, I'm all for technology, but why are we putting technology in place in the first place? We are putting it in place to make people's lives easier, but are we actually doing that? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Okay, at the end of the day, we will still require people in the workforce, and those people have to be performing at their best, because we cannot now afford to have average performing people in the workforce now that AI is going to penetrate literally all industries across the globe. So the people that you have working for you have to be at their optimal level of performance. Now, here's my beef. And my beef is particularly with Canadian leaders and CEOs and executives, because I'm hearing this conversation where they're not investing as much in their people as they should be. In fact, I just had a conversation with a leader before to say, hey, look, they're not investing in upskilling certain teams because they're afraid that if those people do, they're going to leave the organization. Now, that is such a scarcity mindset. We need to think in the complete opposite. Whenever times are tough, and right now, things are actually, we're reaching a plateau in terms of the uncertainty that's being created through the tariffs that were imposed globally. And there's a lot of opportunity here. But that opportunity is only going to come from people and organizations that invest, because you got to look and find those opportunities. So I'm seeing two ends of the spectrum right now. I'm seeing business leaders constrain their budgets and pull back on a lot of spending because they're afraid. They're not sure what's happening. And then there's the other side where business leaders are, they're being prudent. They're managing the risk, but they also know they need to invest because there's a ton of opportunity. In fact, I spoke to gentlemen through email just today where we were talking about what happened to, you can say, the thought when the tariffs first came out at the beginning of the year, and it would be considered a detriment to his business, and they thought that, okay, things weren't going to go so well. But since then they've pivoted, they found a new market, they were able to solidify some very large contracts that are going to enable them to grow over the next 5 years at a pace of 8% in that particular sector that they're servicing. Now, how phenomenal is that when you are facing these challenges and you find opportunities? That's what we need to do. But guess who's going to find those opportunities and close them, folks? It's going to be your people. So if your people right now are not performing optimally, then it's our responsibility as business leaders to invest in them. This is not a rocket science formula. We do know this through research that when you invest in people, people perform better. And when people perform better, the profits of the business increase. Okay, so investing in your people has a direct impact on your bottom line. Yet, we don't see this. Even HR leaders don't see this. I am so flabbergasted. And I am a strategy and execution and business performance guy that also focuses on human performance. But at the end of the day, I am a no fluff person. I don't like these conversations about fluffy cultures and that kind of stuff. What I'm all about is having, yes, a good culture where people like to come to work and they actually engaged at work and they enjoy coming to work and performing at their optimal level. But I'm all about performance. But you cannot have a peak performing team or individuals on your team, whether it's an executive team or frontline team members, if you don't invest in them. That is essentially not going to happen. We know this. So you wouldn't, and so there's four main, you can say, sectors or industries or fields where peak performance is trained. Number one, sports. You can say that's the origin. Okay. Second, military. Okay, take a look at what Germany was doing. They were trying to create the ideal soldiers. Okay, so military is another area where peak performance was also researched and focused on. Then there's performing arts. And if you take a look at performing arts, whether it's musicians, singers, or whatever they are, they all have performance trainers. Okay, it's funny that you might think, do they? Do they really? Yes, they do. In fact, we're going to be spending some time at Cirque du Soleil this fall. And Cirque du Soleil, they have their trainers, right? They have their mindset trainers. They have other trainers that work with those performers because those performers are expected to perform at their highest level and potential. So those are three fields. The business field, we're still lagging. And we're one of the leaders in Canada, if not the leaders, when it comes to this area. We're trying to create more awareness here. We need this in business. Yet we're so stubborn, we don't invest in our people. Imagine Michael Jordan, for example. Michael Jordan also had his own coach aside from Phil Jackson. So Phil Jackson was considered one of, and is still considered one of the best coaches for basketball. He's an incredible man. In fact, just on a side note here, my son and I went to the mall the other day and we found some old school jackets, the LA Lakers and Chicago Bulls, and I couldn't say no to getting them. It was incredible. And so my son found them, I bought them because it just brought me back to the old school days when the Bulls were just kicking butt. But Phil Jackson was an amazing coach. But Michael Jordan also got help from Tim Grover, from a mindset performance. If you don't know who Tim Grover is, you don't know anything about him, just take a look at who he is, look him up. He's done some phenomenal work with some phenomenal athletes, and he was their basically mindset coach as well. So you might have your CEO, you might have your direct manager, you might even have, whoever it may be as your coach, but you still need someone that understands performance. We all do. This is very, very important to understand. Okay, so a lot of the times we neglect this. We don't put effort into this. And I'm only saying this, and I'm very passionate about this because I don't care if you use us or not. That's not the point here. The point is you got to invest in your people. You got to invest in your people. You got to invest in performance because, again, I'm going to harp on this all day long. Leadership training and leadership coaching is not the same thing as performance. You can train a leader to be amazing. That doesn't mean their team members are going to perform any better. In fact, you can train a leader on leadership skills. Okay, that doesn't mean that person is going to perform any better. That's a unique thing. Leadership training is all about creating the climate, okay, that encourages and supports peak performance. It doesn't create it and doesn't sustain it. Okay, that's where individual training comes into place. Oh, I'm going to take a breath here and I'm going to slow down and say, please, please, please invest in your people. Do not overlook the importance of people at the end of the day. If you're investing in technology, continue to invest in technology, but don't forget your people because they are your most important asset going forward. That technology right now, if you take a look at AI, is getting replicated over and over and over again. People are putting out AI models and it's getting replicated. That right now, from my perspective, there is no real competitive advantage or edge right now because that technology is being democratized every single day. However, human performance can't be easily replicated. I'm telling you this because I have 30 years of experience in this field of performance psychology and neuroscience. It is not easily replicated. So that is a unique competitive advantage that every business, every organization can have if you actually focus on it and make it part of your priority. I don't want to hear these conversations about we don't have budget, we haven't budgeted. That's a bunch of BS. You got to put some effort and time into this. Invest in your people, see them as an investment. And the only reason, my last point here, the only reason that people or organizations, I should say, do not have a budget for investing or a decent budget in investing in their people is because they don't see their people as an investment. Bottom line, if you saw your people as an investment, you would be investing in them. I'm going to leave that with you, and hopefully you're going to consider that and take a look at what you're going to do going forward when it comes to helping your people perform at their optimal level.